Welcome back to Garden Studio. I'm Tessa Pinner, a designer and gardener in upstate South Carolina, Zone 8A. Today's video is all about my seed starting equipment setup, which is very much tailored towards the home gardener. None of this is professional industrial equipment. It's all very readily available either online or at local sources, Home Depot, a Tractor Supply or farm supply store, something like that. I will run you through the equipment up here in the daylight before I take you to show you exactly where I'm starting my seeds, which is a cellar. It is a perfect environment for starting seeds, but it's not a very pleasant place to film. And maybe think through what spaces you might have that would work as a more temperate environment, but something that's not just right in the middle of your house. You'll see why in a minute as I explain these materials. So the first thing you will definitely need is a solid bottomed tray of some kind. I have two varieties here. One is really sturdy, a nicer multi-year investment that costs a little bit more. You can see there are grooves in the bottom to allow water to escape out of the seed trays. Then here's another one. This is a kind of flimsier, cheaper version, but still is going to work just as well. You can see the channels for the water to escape in there. That's the important thing, is that they're solid so your water doesn't leak, and they are grooved so the water can get out of the trays and not have your seedlings sitting in water. Sometimes people recommend bottom watering. This is really important for that. If you're pouring water directly into the tray, that there's somewhere for the water to go once the plants have soaked up enough. It goes into the grooves. Inside that, there are a few sizes. This is called a cell tray. This one is 50. This is the smallest I like to go because the smaller the compartment, the more likely it is to dry out when things start to germinate. It's just, this is a size you could plant out into the garden, and anything smaller I feel like is a bit hard to do that. I don't want the mess for most things of having to pot it up to a bigger size. So 50 is the smallest that I go. From there this year, I'm going to put a few things into these 4-packs. These I salvaged from a project earlier this year that was planting up a lot of containers with annuals, and there isn't a great way to recycle these. I don't love just throwing them in the trash. I like to give them 1 or 2 seasons of additional use. I feel better about that than just throwing them away. These pints will fit 18 to tray. I will use these for certain things that I want to get larger before I plant them out. So if you saw a few weeks ago, I detailed all of the seeds that I'm ordering, some of which are perennials. For the perennials that start small here to make sure I get germination, I will pot some of those up into these larger containers to get them more robust before they go out into the garden. Inside your cell trays or containers, you will need some potting mix. Some companies sell specific seed germination mix. I have used that with good success, but it is a lot more expensive than regular potting mix. And I think you can use regular potting mix as long as you know a couple of things. One is that the texture of the mix matters. Not too chunky, not big chunks of bark. That will make it hard for these small containers. It will make it hard to have seeds contact with the growing medium. You want a finer texture. You do want good drainage though. So I have regular old organic potting mix here that I will add some perlite, which is those little white balls that you see in potting mix. The mixture that I have right here doesn't have very much of that. I will go and buy just a bag of that, mix it in, and make my own very well draining mix from about 10 to 15% by volume of the mixture. The other thing to know is that it's better to use organic than something that has synthetic, stronger fertilizers in it. The main thing is the strength of the fertilizer. You want it to be gentle on seedlings. Seedlings don't need a big push of fertilizer. The next most important thing is light. Now I have a couple of different setups that I'll show you in a few minutes. One is regular old fluorescent shop lights, and the other one is this T5 LED light. I've had really good success with both. The thing to know is that the fluorescent lights get hot and LED lights do not. Fluorescent lights are heavy, a little more of a commitment to get them raised. We built a timber contraption to raise them, whereas we could do these with cords and PVC pipe on a standing stacking rack. You'll see both of those things both work. You don't have to have the really expensive grow lights. The thing to know about those is that they're full spectrum light. So cool light and warm light that gives all of the wavelengths of light and energy to your plants. That's ideal, but it's not absolutely necessary. The bulbs that I have are kind of in the middle. So I may experiment over time with more on either end of cool and warm, but I went with more of a median bulb for these T5, and I've had great success with them. So you don't have to go really expensive on the grow lights. The next helpful item is a timer. So this is a plug-in timer that lets you set light and dark hours. And about 16 to 18 hours max of light is ideal for seedlings. You can keep them on all the time until germination happens. I like to go ahead and just set them at 16 hours and then not have to worry about changing the light. It comes on and off by itself. It's very easy. Another optional item is a seedling germination or heat mat. So this is not something I would necessarily use with the fluorescent lights because they get so hot. But with these LEDs, it's sometimes nice to supplement heat for certain kinds of seeds that need heat to germinate. So it goes right under here and plugs in. And when the seedlings start to emerge, you can take the heat mat away. You don't really want heat under the seedlings once they've germinated. It's just to help break dormancy and start germination. A second optional item would be a clear plastic cover. This helps lock in moisture. Again, it's more helpful when either you're trying to get germination to get even moisture, kind of create a little greenhouse sauna in here. This is a cheap sort of flimsier version. And then I have some nicer, sturdier ones in here that I bought by the pack. Either one worked great. I like the idea, if you have to use plastic, of making it a multi-season thing. So I prefer to buy a little bit sturdier things when I can, but it all works. The next, not absolutely necessary, but helpful thing is a product called vermiculite. This is a natural material that I like to dust over my seeds once I've sowed them. If it's a big seed and you have to push it down into the soil, that's one thing. But if it's a really little seed, you don't want it get buried way down in there. I like to dust the top with this vermiculite to have just a layer of something over top. It is worth mentioning that some seeds don't want to be covered. So that's a read the instructions and research the specific thing you're sowing so you know. But this helps lock in moisture. It's not necessary, but I have found that it helps a little bit. These are fish and seaweed fertilizer and fish fertilizer, respectively. These are a natural, organic, almost more like a tonic than a real strong fertilizer, but I have found it helps with the health of seedlings. When seedlings are really close together in an environment like this, you can get fungus, you can get more diseases, and the healthier your seedling in the tray, the better start it's going to get in the garden. So I have found this product, Neptune Harvest, to work really well. One caveat is that it does not smell good. It stinks like dead fish. So if you are going to use this, I would make sure you have a spot that you're starting your seeds that's not somewhere you're going to have to be all the time, because you really don't want to smell it any more than you need to. It is very diluted. This is a half-gallon pitcher that I use, and it's a half tablespoon for this whole thing. So I filled this up with water, mix it up, and then pour it into my little watering can once the seeds are germinated. You don't need to feed them with anything until they've actually emerged from the soil. The very last thing is a identification tag of some kind. I have these cute little bamboo ones that I've used right on the top with marker. or these plastic little stakes. These I will probably order another box of. Again, they're not expensive and you can use them multiple years. You can just wipe off the marker actually when you're done with them and reuse them. So this is an easy thing, especially if you're not sewing the whole tray in something. You're trying to remember what is what. I have in years past thought that I could keep a legend in a journal with charts and what's what by location. It did not work. I will tell you, I got so confused. So just label it, and these are a really easy way to do that. Okay, let's go downstairs and come to my cellar with me, and we will see my seed starting setup. Welcome to my seed cellar. I promised a relatively dark and somewhat dingy experience, and here we are. It is absolutely a little bit dark and a little bit dingy, but it's so functional. So one thing I mentioned earlier was just thinking about whatever space you have in your house that may be unused. It has actually been oddly a pleasure to get use out of a space that otherwise we would never come and experience. So here we are. This bay is the fluorescent lights. This was the first piece that we added to our seed starting equipment, and they're heavy and they're clunky, and that's why we had to hang them on chains from the rafters. They also get very hot under here. It's like a heater, which can be great again for starting certain seeds. Not all seeds like that. It's a little bit harder to raise and lower. Have S hooks that I'll start them closer to the tray surface. For instance, they'll be way down here at the beginning and I'll raise them, but there is always a little bit of a risk of scorching seedlings with something that the light inherently is hot. So when we decided to expand our setup, I did not get more of these. I'm going to go ahead and turn this off because my husband says it's backlighting and I look like touched by an angel. So we'll get rid of that and come over here. These are our more recent addition and what I would do more of if I decided to add another rack. It's a very simple modular plastic stacking rack that is nice because there's no chance of rusting or anything like that with metal. And I can fit 1, 2, 3 trays wide times the 4 shelves. So there's 3 T5 lights. On each one, they're daisy chained together so that the bay comes on all together, and each bay has a timer that I showed you outside. So this is the setting that I will use the seed starter mat. I have a little leftover from last year, Psyche Cosmo, which is a great one. I have 4 seedling heat mats, and I just will choose who probably needs the most encouragement to germinate and put them under those trays. You can see here, one good thing about these lights not getting hot is I can get them even closer to the surface of the seed tray. So this right here is just a piece of PVC that's cut with a nylon cord through it, and I can raise and lower each end independently by adjusting this string. And I believe I got this idea from Urban Farmstead. If you want more information specifically on this, I will try to find that video and link it for you. I found it extremely helpful. He's a great source for all things kitchen garden. In total, I can fit 12 plus 4, so I can have 16 trays going at any given time. I may or may not have them all active at once. Some things start earlier than others, so by the time they're ready to go outside, I probably will have it all full, but it will kind of gradually fill up. If you think of any questions based on what I've said, if you want more information on anything specifically, feel free to leave a question in the comments. I will monitor those, and if anything comes up, I will do my best to answer. I hope you've all ordered your seeds and are awaiting or have already gotten them and are really excited to get started for the year. All right, have a great week.